Hi, I'm Sharon Salzberg, and I want to welcome you all to this gathering. I am so grateful for the presence of these people, not only on the panel, but in my life. And I'll start just by reading some bios, and then we'll get right to some discussion. So, Samantha Novick grew up in Parkland, Florida, and is an alumnus of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I said that because we just had a whole discussion about alumnus and alumni, and which is the proper word. So, alumnus is what she is. After the devastating Parkland shooting, she supported the Stoneman Douglas students who led the Parkland March for Our Lives to demand an end to the gun violence epidemic in our country. She is passionate about creating a more equitable world where all have the opportunity to use their voices and lead meaningful lives. Samantha pursues these passions through her work as a speech-language pathologist and owner of her private practice, Bridge Therapy. She spends much of her time volunteering as the president of a nonprofit organization, The Friendship Journey, that creates authentic friendships between individuals of all abilities, and recently ran a virtual summer camp for teens and adults with disabilities collaboratively with Dylan's Wings of Change. Sari Kaufman is a recent graduate of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. She was one of the lead organizers of the Parkland March for Our Lives. After planning the march, she co-founded a nonpartisan nonprofit called Empower the People. The organization educates and encourages high school students to use their voices to make positive changes in the government. Also, she serves on the Students Demand Action National Advisory Board and continues to fight for common sense gun reform. She's currently attending Yale University as a freshman. Annika and Mitch Dworet are the parents of Nicholas and Alexander, victims from Parkland Tragedy. Annika and Mitch's son Nicholas was killed during the Parkland shooting. Their other son Alexander was wounded, witnessed the killing of his fellow students. Their journey continues through the trauma and grief toward healing and living again. In honor of Nick and his love and talent for swimming, they founded the nonprofit organization, the Nicholas Dworet Memorial Fund, and Nick's swim club family, TS Aquatics, formed a tribute to Nick called the Swim for Nick campaign. Swim for Nick is a symbol of their love for Nick and his family. Fred Guttenberg is the father to daughter Jamie and son Jesse. His 14-year-old daughter Jamie, a freshman at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, was one of 17 victims brutally murdered in the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Fred spends much of his time challenging elected officials to do more and is aggressively pursuing strategies to enhance public safety, enact common sense gun safety, and turn out the vote through his nonprofit organization dedicated to Jamie's life called Orange Ribbons for Jamie. He recently published his first book, Find the Helpers, which is available for pre-order on Amazon and through other booksellers, which tells the story of Fred's journey since Jamie's death and how he has been able to get through the worst of times thanks to the kindness and compassion of others. So thank you all so much for being here in this conversation and for all that you do, really, in your lives. Sari, I'll start with you, just to hear like how you are. I know where you are because this is her dorm room, which is so exciting.
Yes, thank you. Well, first, thank you for having me on this panel, and it's an honor to also be with the other panelists. Yes, here's my bed. I just set it up. Unfortunately, I had to do everything by myself because our parents couldn't move us in. But yeah, I'm excited to be on here, and thank you again.
That's great. So I'm looking for the quotation from my book, Real Change, from you when you talked about the feeling that you had inside after the gun violence, and also what happened in leading the march. And you said, when we marched past our school, we had 35,000 people just completely silent, which was insane. To keep that many people quiet and passing the memorial and passing the building where it happened, just being in the spot where everything changed, where this movement was created, it was just really inspiring. We marched around our school and then came back to the park. It was a weird day because it was like, wow, look at what we just did. But at the same time, it was, we did this because of what happened. So it was kind of bittersweet. I didn't know what to feel because I was just so happy that after all this work, it was a huge success. But at the same time, I lost one of my friends. If that didn't happen to us, we wouldn't have had to have the march. So I know you've been working in a way like channeling grief and finding a sense of purpose and using love to help find that sense of purpose. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about that and what helps you.
Yeah, well, obviously being so young with that happening, it completely changed my life. But before the shooting, I was always active in my community. And then afterwards, instead of, I know, some people definitely like took a break and had to process everything, and people grieve differently. But for me, it helped me get through what happened by just going straight into taking action and being able to, I went up to Tallahassee right after the shooting. And then I planned the march right afterwards. And it, to me, like when I remember it, it feels like it was all just like 1 week. But I think being able to have those big events in my life after such a drastic one, I was able to not have to process as much as what happened and just put all my energy into trying to make change and inspire others. So honestly, I've been doing that since. It might not be the healthiest because I haven't really, even in the past 2 years, taken a second and really think about exactly what happened. I think that would just probably be a little too hard. But being able to put that energy into my work, and still now through my nonprofit, being able to inspire other students to also take action on the issues that bother them in their lives has helped me.
Can you tell us about your nonprofit? Like, what is it?
Yeah, so I started Empower the People, and right now we just developed a website called My Vote Project, where people can just type in their zip code, and all the candidates, we've covered Florida first for the Florida primary. So all the candidates populate with their information and their overview, any news articles are featured in. So we're really focused on voter education, and now we're expanding to other states, and we have about 200 high school student volunteers helping us. So being able to interact with those students all the time and also inspiring them has been really nice. And I think the shooting happened, there are so many factors, but because we didn't hold even our local politicians accountable. So hopefully the goal is if everyone is clear on who exactly they are voting for at the most local level, then we can have more accountability, more responsibility on their part, and hopefully stop these tragic events from happening.
I'm talking to, you all, there's such a powerful sense of community and finding one another, like even just like we're all gawking at your dorm room. It's so exciting, like, wow, what did that calligraphy say? Look at that, and I wonder if you could just say something about community.
Yeah, well, Sam Novick, she helped me plan the march, and without her, the march would not have been possible. And Fred, Annika, and Mitch, they all give me inspiration to see them keep fighting even after they lost their sons and daughters. So it's definitely a nice community, and we really grew closer in Parkland, at least definitely from a student perspective. I feel like the adults and students got closer, and Sam I want to thank Sam because she's been the best rock for the past 2 years. And whenever I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this another project or whatever, she gives me inspiration. So.
And in facing such a tragedy and then moving on and channeling that energy, which is so incredible because it serves all of us, it's such a wake-up call for everybody to pay attention, and not just go by and take things for granted. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about self-care also, because I know that's an interest of yours and something that you've paid attention to.
Yeah, well, before February 14th, I never really thought about self-care. Honestly, didn't really think it was too important. And then after just dealing with so much at a young age, I learned that self-care is important and that someone should value it in their lives. So for me, it's really like exercise that part is a huge aspect of my life, and I think helps me process. I like running and just doing sports, and also like being part of that community, and not having to think about specific issues in my life. So that's a huge part of self-care. And also I think just reflecting and journaling, at least once a week, that's been helping me. But it's interesting for me because, like I said before, I would never have thought that it was important. So for people who are listening, and even if you don't have a tragic event, I really think self-care is important no matter what.
And somebody's writing in the chat, they want to know the name of the website of your nonprofit again.
That's called myvoteproject.com. And right now we only have the Florida candidates, but we're expanding to different states for the general election.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. And I like your dorm room. I think it's like really cool. And it's such a beginning. It's really a beautiful moment that you would share some time with us and in this. So hang in there, for as long as you can until you have to go to your meeting. And Fred, hi. We've actually never physically met before. I was looking around for my orange bracelet, which is somewhere here on my desk. And
weren't we together in San Francisco?
No, I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there? Okay.
I wasn't there, but I did watch it. I watched it in tears, actually. It was an amazing panel. And I feel very close to you. I feel very close to your daughter. You've done an amazing job in bringing her.
Is.
Yeah. She's quite a dancer.
She was.
So when you were on that panel, it was a Wisdom 2.0 panel.
Yeah.
You said something that was it was very important for me, and I think it's very important, which was about finding meaning. So I wonder if you could just say something about that.
February 14th, 2018 changed our life in ways big and small. There's the obvious ways, what that tragedy meant to us. But then, you then have to go through a process of going forward. You still have to get up every day, get dressed, put on your shoes, and walk out the door. And so as the days rolled on and we moved forward, I had to find ways to motivate myself to want to get up, put on my clothes, and walk out the door. And for me, life became, let me take a step back. Life has always been about my kids. And for those of you on this call who may have known me before this, you know that. After February 14, 2018, it took me a while to get to this place, but the realization, life was still about my kids, plural. As a parent, you're always reacting and responding to what happens to your children. And while Jamie is not with me in the physical sense, Jesse is, thank God, I'm still a parent of two children responding to what happened to my two children. And so that led me on this journey to deal with the reality of what happened to our kids and to our community. And it led me onto this journey to find meaning in a much bigger community, which is the community of those who are victims of gun violence. And with Jamie on my shoulder, listen, I always used to teach her, still teach my son, You always do what's right, not what's easy. And again, for those on this call, Sam, who knew Jamie, you knew she always did what was right. And she was tough. And she fought for others. And she didn't back down, which as her dad wasn't always the easiest thing in the world. But that's who she was. And on her behalf, that's who I am now. Never should have happened. Mitch and Annika and I and the others, we woke up on February 14th, 2018. We sent our children to school to learn, to be safe, and to celebrate a day of love when they came home. And that didn't happen. And because of that, I will spend the rest of my life dealing with this issue, hoping to ensure families don't pay the price that our families did in this culture, in this environment, because of all the years where just nothing was done.
You know, I can tell you're a really good dad in part because of following you on Twitter. And sometimes one of, you know, Sari's contemporaries will write a tweet that seems troubled or, and you write back right away. You know, you want to talk? You know, is there anything I can do for you? And I think, God, he's right there. It's so amazing.
Listen, this weekend, I don't know, for those of you who paid attention, there's a person in this political environment who I despise. And her name is Kellyanne Conway. And she works for the White House. But this weekend, her daughter went on Twitter in a very troubled series of tweets calling out for help, to the point where I worried about her safety. And I went on Twitter to reach out to her. It's the only way I knew how. But more importantly, even though I despise her mom, in a very non-political tweet, I tweeted out to her parents, because her dad is also a political person, and said, in a non-political way as possible, you need to go pay attention to your daughter now, before it's too late, before you're a parent who deals with the pain that I deal with. So put everything else aside and just go. And listen, I don't know if my tweet is what inspired them to get involved or not, but we all know that later that day, they got involved in their daughter's life, and hopefully saved her life, because that is a kid who was crying out for help. Listen, everybody has moments in life where they need help, where they need support, where you need others. And it's our obligation to be there for others when that moment happens. And, you know, as I talk about in my book, I'm very thankful that others were there for me, because you don't get through life alone. You don't get through anything without others.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about your book, if you could say some more about it.
So, you know, 4 months before my daughter was killed, my brother died from cancer related to his service in 9/11. I'm one of 5 kids. My parents are still alive. As a family, we have never dealt with loss like this. It was a new experience to us. It was the worst kind of experience I ever could have imagined. And I was blown away at, in my brother's case, how this community of first responders wrapped their arms not just around my brother in the end, but us, his family, during the lead up to the end, the funeral, and even after. It made it better for us, easier for us to deal with this. When my daughter was killed, we were still mourning my brother's loss. And as much as that felt like the worst thing in the world, my daughter's murder was 1,000 times worse. And again, and I heard you ask Sari about community. to get through it, you couldn't do it without community, without others who lifted me, whether it be members of the other families, the other 16, or someone like Sam, who's had her arms wrapped around my family since this happened, or other friends who we had or who became new friends, people in media, people in politics. We always hear people walking around saying, people suck, media sucks, politics. And I'm just here to say my experience is different. Give people a chance to be amazing, and they can be. And so I ended up writing my book about how amazing people are, about how people stepped up to carry me and my family forward when we needed it. And so, at this time when this country is going through this pandemic, where people are getting sick alone, people are dying alone, people are getting buried alone, we need each other. And so it's incumbent upon us to know who our helpers are and to stay connected to them, but also to know who might be needing your help. And my book, I hope it inspires people to go forward thinking about the interconnectedness of people and the fact that we need each other, because we're coming off of a political climate that tries to drive wedges and push people away from each other. That's not the way this country was built. It's not the way we as social beings function. And I hope to inspire people to move towards one another and to be there for each other.
Oh, you've inspired me, truly. I mean, we spoke before, the panel, and I said to you that I retweeted the announcement about your book, and therefore my name on Twitter was with yours, coupled with yours, and I got a glimpse, I'm sure the barest glimpse, of some of the vitriol and the ignorance and the hatred just pouring out towards you. And I basically asked you how you coped, and I don't know, I can repeat what you said because it was amazing, but I don't know if you want to say
no, go ahead.
Well, you basically said, everything had been taken from you on February 14th and the worst had happened, and that you were not, you didn't sort of look to the haters, you looked to the people who helped.
Listen, the worst thing that could have possibly happened to my family, to Mitch and Annika, it happened. So if people think you can hurt me with words, you can't. And the majority of people aren't out there with vitriol, but I am enamored with and focused on and holding on to the people who show love and the people who support. And I'll engage the haters, and not all of them, but enough of them, because I want to expose that way of thinking. But I live for the helpers. I live for the decent people. I live for the civil people, and I hope to be that way for them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Samantha, who's gotten a lot of praise already tonight. Well deserved. So we met when I came to Parkland and taught a retreat. It's where I met several of you, Sari and Mitch. And you said something quite incredible at that moment. You asked me, you said something like, I have the actual quote, it's just from my book, but you said something about how there had been many amazing experiences of generosity and care and beauty, including the day that we were having together. And it felt almost hard to appreciate at the same time, because you knew the reason it happened was because this terrible thing had happened, just like Sari was saying, the march, which was such an incredible thing. and you asked me, how do I get over sort of that event in a way, to more fully appreciate life and what it could bring. And I said, I don't think you ever get over it. I think you learn to hold both. In some way. Do you remember that?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So first, I just want to say thank you, Sharon, for writing this book, because we need real change now more than ever. Our world is suffering, our communities are suffering, and it's so important that we continue to look for the helpers, like Fred said. Not only do I remember that, Sharon, but I actually think of that often, and especially lately in this time as we're again going through, we're really in the thick of this current tragedy with COVID and with the hatred that pervades our society. And it can be tough to hold it all. I'll never forget what you said, because I think that before the shooting, I had this very binary way of thinking about emotions. Like I could be happy or I could be sad. But I never really considered that we can hold more than one emotion at the same time. And I know it kind of seems obvious now, but just having that permission and having a name for it and learning that concept of equanimity, of holding both, was really powerful for me at that time and continues to be now. As we navigate these really immense emotions that we're experiencing. I also read a book of yours, Sharon, called Loving Kindness. And there's this quote in it that I refer to all the time. It's in my phone and I've been looking at it a lot lately. And it's about the Taoist symbol of yin and yang, and how even when we're in the depths of darkness, that light is implicit. And even when we're in those moments of light, the darkness is understood and acknowledged. And that was really powerful for me too, because I think sometimes it's really easy to get lost in the darkness, especially when it's been so relentless and it's kind of been, one thing after the other. So I've learned a lot in holding both. And truly, I've learned so much from everyone here on this panel. We've experienced, or we've heard these stories before, but in being in a community impacted by such violence and hatred, there really are not any words to describe what it is like to be in a community impacted by gun violence. And there are many communities, unfortunately, who have been impacted by gun violence. And I think the best way to describe it is there are these concentric circles. I remember Shelley describing it like that one time. And that was really powerful for me, that there are those who lost loved ones. There are those who were there that day, who bared witness, and they're really in that inner core. And then there are sort of these outer bands, and everyone in those communities are impacted in different ways. And I'm grateful because my family was spared. But the effect of that day is something that will continue to live with me forever. I mean, it really changed our lives. And I've also learned in thinking about that symbol, that yin and yang, that we can create the light. And that's what I've learned from Shelley and Fred and Sari and Mitch and Annika, is sometimes even in those really dark moments, we can take a step forward, even if it feels impossible, even if it's sharing light with someone else. I know I think of Jamie all the time and the light that she brought into this world. And it's been really incredible to get to know her even after she's not physically here, because she is still here with us and in everything that we do. And I remember once having a conversation with Fred's wife, Jen, and she was having a tough day. And she said, you know, I just want to do something for someone else. And that really stuck with me. Like, she was in the depths of that darkness, and she decided, even though I can't feel the light myself, I'm going to share it with someone else. And I think for me, learning that from you, Sharon, and continuing to see that has really impacted my life.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. I mean, I can remember in the beginning of the pandemic when there wasn't so much knowledge, you know, about, well, breathing indoors, you know, and with other people and things like that, you know. And I had left California. I was there for a month of February. I was back in New York City, and I was teaching this large gathering. And before I got up on the stage, I was just sitting in the audience in the front row, and the person sitting next to me was like completely freaked out and totally anxiety driven. And so we were just talking, and I said, well, try breathing in this particular way, you know, and it'll just kind of calm down your nervous system. And that didn't seem very gratifying. And then I said, well, how about some loving kindness meditation, you know, where you offer this loving energy to other people. And that didn't seem very gratifying. And then I said, is there anyone you can help? And she lit up. It was like she just got radiant. And she said, you know, I have this elderly neighbor, and I can see if I can do her shopping for her. And I thought, oh, look at that. You know, it does. There's something about that action that does return us to something where we can feel some stability and we can feel some wholeness, even though maybe our lives have been ripped apart. There's something in us that is intact, which is the love. You know, I once read I think it's actually in the book, Real Change, I read a description of grief as being love that doesn't have the normal place to go. You know, that may have been taken away, but what's present is the love. And that's helped me a tremendous amount in my own life. And so I think in some way, you know, that's what she was connecting to with the care for her neighbor, that sense of connection, that sense of care. And it was very beautiful. So tell me about your work with the March, when you were involved with that.
Yeah. So I'll never forget, actually, this phone call that I had with Fred. It was very soon after the shooting. And he was talking about purpose. And it's something that really stuck with me and that I thought of often during the march. And it was really just a way to channel this pain that we were experiencing and this anger at the injustice and the senselessness of this loss. And it's not just in that moment that these losses happen. It continues. It never goes away. So in channeling that, I think a lot of us in the community kind of felt helpless. I know it was, for those of us sort of on those outer concentric bands, like we just didn't really know what to do, because we felt this enormity of something just so tragic and that we just couldn't explain. And what do we do with that? And it was really the students and the young people and the families that led the way in each in their own ways. Some committed to healing, some committed to gun violence prevention, some committed to making schools safer. And so in following their lead and seeing how these people who were really in the center of that, you know, circle, and how they were able to channel their pain I just followed them. And it was the young people, the students, who decided, enough is enough. They wanted better, and they deserve better, and our future generations deserve better. And I learned from Sari, actually, in her speech at the march. She said that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And I think of that a lot too, because now we're 2.5 years out, and this is something that we're committed to fighting for however long it takes. We're not going to stop. But at the same time, it's important that we acknowledge that in order to sustain that pace, we have to stop and take that, metaphorical water break, right? Which has to do with caring for ourselves, and not in a selfish way, but in a way that we can fully show up for others. And that's what I learned from the march, and really just the power of community, as Fred and Sari and you had shared, Sharon, in how we're all so connected. I remember something, I guess these little kind of things that others have shared with me just really have stuck with me. And something else that one of my former teachers, Mrs. Seamus, who really means a lot to me, and was actually Nick's teacher. She taught Holocaust studies and met with a lot of survivors. And what the survivors would say is that pain should not be wasted. And I saw that from the students during the march. And I also got to see what it looks like behind a movement, because I think a lot of times we just see what's on TV, or we see that one moment, and we don't really get to see the work that goes into it each day. So I think that that's something important too, that it is going to take time, and change takes time. I mean, it's like that quote from Martin Luther King Jr., the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Now I know Sari needs to go to her orientation. So
Yes.
thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And I was honored to be on this panel. So thank you. And thank you for including me in your book. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
And thank you. And also for bringing up self-care, more about self-care and taking that break. So I want to go to Annika and Mitch and say, it's funny when you called her Mrs. Seamus, because I was going to call her Ivy. But I'm a lot older, so that's probably okay.
I've known her since 4th grade, so it just
okay.
It's always been Mrs. Seamus to me, so I struggled to.
Ivy writes in the chat, she never calls me Ivy. She can, exclamation point. Because I was going to say, I feel like I know your son through Ivy, largely through Ivy, and things that she said, especially when we were having this retreat together in Barry, and of course through you as well, Mitch. And I wonder if the two of you could speak some about where you go for resilience and how you keep that sense of love alive. I remember there was another Zoom that Mitch and I were on together, and he was going to lead a meditation, which he will tonight as well. And he started out by saying that he knew he'd never get over the pain of what had happened, but he was learning how to navigate it. And as soon as Mitch, you used the word navigate, I thought of a North Star. I thought, okay, what do I navigate my life by? What do I care about more than anything? What gets me through, whatever's going on? And that was a really important thing. It was even really important for me in writing this book, because I wrote the entire book before the pandemic, and then it was delayed. Publication was delayed. And that gave me the chance to write a preface. And that kind of question was very prominent in my writing the preface. The new preface was like, what do I navigate my life by? What are those fundamental things that I'm just guided by no matter what? So I wonder if the two of you could talk to us a little bit about that, like what you do. And
I could start. You know, when this happened on that day, it just really was a very devastating, as you can imagine, experience. And so many layers to it that still go on to this day and will forever go on for us, as Fred mentioned. But by the way, thank you for having us today. And, you know, I was so many pieces to that. Getting out into the world, as hard as this sounds, going to see Nick at the funeral home. That was the first time we left the house. And I remember driving with a friend. Annika went with one of her friends, and the world looked really different. It moves on. People were driving, but for me, it was a very surreal experience. It was different. We're different. I'm a different man from February 13th to February 15th. I think for a long time, couldn't really do much. It took me a while, and I think at the 3-month mark, well, it started with the March for Our Lives kids. I saw some hope there. And then, you know, at 3 months, believe it or not, Alex's experience kicked in. So there's two things that happened. Initially, we found our way through another couple. I always mention Sandy and Lonnie Phillips, who lost their daughter Jessie in the Aurora shooting. We met them early on, within a week. And just to meet someone who had experienced something that we had experienced was very helpful. And what really helped us was the self-care piece they mentioned. You know, there's so many people out there who are fighting the good fight. The politics of it are going to eat you up alive. The politicians are much more savvy. You don't know what you're up against. Take care of yourselves. There'll be time. There's going to be so much time for you to get out there. And us being, we're very involved prior to this happening in fitness and health and that kind of a lifestyle. So we were very fortunate enough to, we had to go through a couple, but we were very fortunate enough to meet a trauma therapist that helps our family. We've done the MDR, which is very helpful. That was the start. And we got ourselves into therapy very early as a family, especially for Alex. That was important because like I said, for the first 2 to 3 months, we were just trying to survive because it's a survival mode, you know, it's a survive or die. I don't need to be like that, but it is. And then I think we, like I said, I think we really started to focus on Alex and what he went through, and that was very difficult as well. But we needed to be there for him as a mother, as parents, of course, and to realize what he went through. And, you know, again, going to what Fred said about the helpers, because it makes sense to me, of course. The community, there is so much love and kindness that came to us through this community around the country. I talk about some people who are friends or family even who couldn't handle what went on. And although we love them, they're not available to us. Where there are others who have stepped up, and there are new friends and family not by blood who are with us now and will always be with us. Showing up, with meals, getting us, folks stayed in our house who were very close to us for the first week, 2 weeks, being here. And again, it's a journey. It's, we watched a movie, we were involved in Us Kids, which Alex is in Atlanta tonight. It has to do with the getting out the vote with the young people and what March for Our Lives did do early on, and a testament to what they did, getting the young people involved and the activism. Watching the movie, I saw it in January in Sundance, and watching it the other night, time doesn't heal but the time somehow softens things up. We still, of course, get the triggers. It's extraordinary. We're very, very sensitive to the different things people say without using their sense. And these, the politics and the things that are going on. And then, there is healing that has happened. And I think Samantha brought me to you and Shelley, and I'm always very grateful for that. I didn't know what I was getting into that day. I walked in, I'm that kind of a person. I walk into things, and I have to, especially now, be aware of who's there, what's going on. And I sat somewhere in the back, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And for me that day, listening to you, and I was really not into mindfulness. I knew about present moment thinking from Eckhart Tolle in my previous career of leadership and running businesses. I knew about present moment thinking. This is what's happening right now, because I was in that kind of environment and I had to deal with things. But when I starting there, that day, and then Shelley kind of embracing me and contacted me, and as she says, showing up for me, and then me getting into that place of meditation, it started to take a really good hold of me in a very healing way. And I think Annika started to see what was happening with that and what I was doing, and she's come along to it. We do many little other things, but I try and meditate every day. And again, I just did a walking meditation at the Temple of Time, where it used to be that it was the Burning Man organization built. And I did many founders of Burning Man live in Northern California with the fire. So I did a walking meditation, and I would have never known all this. And it was sending out the benevolent love and kindness to those folks, and the peace that I hope they find. And I would have never done that 3 years ago, but I do it for myself, and it helps me to give out. And when I speak about our journey that we're going through, and I speak about, there has to be, you have to find ways to deal with everyday things that come out at you. I was talking to Annika earlier, Jonathan Richman and Austin Eubanks, two people. Austin Eubanks was a survivor of Columbine. He took his life. And Mr. Richman lost his daughter Ariel, and he took his life. So when you, God rest their souls. And when you think about these things, and when you hear these things, you have to know that you have to fight every day. You have to find the tools, meditation being one, that works for me, because it won't end. It's not an end point, And I think with COVID and the civil unrest and the things that are going on in the environment we live in, and the loss, the grief on a macro level, I think folks might not have those tools yet. They're just going on with their life, and all of a sudden this happened. But in conjunction, for folks like Fred, Annika, and I, we've experienced the unfortunate grief and trauma. So we came along to have these tools, and it helps me to talk about it in a space like this, If anyone grabs anything from it that can help them, that's the gift that I can give, you know?
Yeah, well, thank you. You do give tremendous gifts. And before I ask you to lead the meditation, I wanted to ask Annika two things. One is, when we talked, before this, and you talked about going back to work, and it was so moving to me, just that sense of support and community. And then I just want to know more about us kids.
Okay. Yeah, so I am an emergency room nurse. I work in pediatric ER, and my job, the whole organization, my boss, my coworkers, they were so supportive of me throughout this whole thing, and they said, take your time. And I think I was off for about 6 months before I could even think of going back to work. But I was extremely nervous about going back to work because I didn't know if I could handle it. How can I deal with very sick children, or God forbid, the worst thing that unfortunately we know of? How could I deal with that? How am I going to be able to do my job and work in a fast pace trying to save somebody? Or am I going to just flip out? I don't know. And my boss, and like I said, the coworker said, we're there for you. Please come in. And they would make sure that if we did have those circumstances where the child was extremely sick, my boss would be on my side and said, I'm here. If you have to step away, I'll take over for you. And she let me lead the way and try to do what I could do. And knowing that she was there, I was able to do it and continue working, because I love what I do. I love helping others. I love working with kids. So but it took me a while before I can go back to work. And like we all talked about, the community helping us to even continue, like you said, Fred, to just get up in the morning. My house was full of people. I had to get up. I had to take a shower. I had to eat something. People were making sure that we were doing that. And because you're just thinking, why did I even wake up? I don't want to be here. I don't want to feel this horrible, horrible pain every morning. But people showed all that love to us. They, show, we want you to be here. We want you to continue, and we will help you to get there. And it was just, the love was just overwhelming. I've never, ever seen anything like that. It was like old friends, new friends, family. It's just extraordinary. Neighbors I never met before. They were just there and did whatever. And they did things without asking us. They just did to make sure that we were okay. But then I also think that, like you said, the pain is still there. The pain, I don't know if the pain changes. I think you just learn how to live with it. And both Mitch and I are very open-minded. So if you tell me that something can help me feel just a little bit better, I will be willing to try it. And we've done a lot with like essential oils, like I do like a little lavender roll on my wrist. It just helps me to take some deep breaths and it helps us to relax. We do a diffuser. A friend of mine gave me a yoga gift certificate. I've never really done a little bit, but nothing much, but I really got into yoga, and I felt that was really helping me to both with exercising and with breathing. And it was an hour where I couldn't think about it because I had to worry about the different poses, going from different poses. And then it ended with a meditation at the end, which
we float.
With that's another new thing that you now tried. We've gone floating, which is these pods filled with Epsom salt and warm water, and the room temperature and the water temperature is exactly the same, so you can't tell what body part is in the water or which one is above, and it's completely dark, completely quiet, and you're just floating. And it's a very
meditative experience.
Yeah, very unique experience, like to really calm your mind, because your mind is busy with all these thoughts and all these feelings, and the mixture of the like you said, the hatred, the anger, the sadness, and those are a few things that's help us a lot. Yeah. breathing, just stop.
Just realizing.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think touching on those kids.
Oh yeah. So
yeah, if you do that, and then we're going to have a meditation, and then we'll go on from there.
So so it's showing the activism, but it's also showing kids have been traumatized from these shootings. So I think that it really shows like the inside, what you were talking about, Sam, how that what we didn't see in the media, what these kids really, really did to organize the march and organize their trip, the Road to Change.
And how it impacted them.
And how
and not, the psychological impact of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that piece. So, and they were shown as real kids. They're just kids, they're just young people.
Yeah.
And they've been thrust into this environment, and they didn't have time to attend. I think Sari mentioned it. She really doesn't have time. It's been 2 years now, and she didn't have time to address maybe some of the things that happened that day moving forward. And I think this film, Us Kids, addresses that. And it's a great film in that it just talks about getting the youth vote out and having the youth involved, and not just being complacent about there's so many things that it's their future.
Yeah.
And I think it's also not great. It's Alex and Samantha Fuentes, who was in Nick's class and next to Nick when this all happened. They became very good friends, and it shows their relationship in the film, and how they both helped each other very early on, which is really nice to see. And Alex is right now in Atlanta. He's come a long way, again, through the love and kindness of people.
Yeah.
But he's trauma therapy. I mean, you have to do it. It's just, but he's with Samantha in Atlanta right now, and they're doing a showing of that film. It's just coming out now. So.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. And I'm hoping, Mitch, you can lead us in a meditation, and we'll kind of close this part of it, and then
we could do
I
like
know Fred has to leave, and then we're going to have time for some questions.
So I need to go hop on another Zoom.
I'll meditate with Fred another time if you
I'll meditate with you anytime. So
all right, that's
I won't
a deal.
meditate with many people, but I'll meditate with you. So everybody, have a wonderful night, and thank you for putting this together and having us on. We'll see you later.
Say it again.
Yes.
I will.
There's Shelley. So Mitch, if you would be willing to lead us in a meditation, that would be
sure. We can
terrific.
Maybe
and then subsequent to that, I'm going to invite Shelley to join us. Get in from behind the scenes, and like I keep calling her like the Wizard of Oz, and emerge from behind the curtain. And then there's already some questions coming in, that are interesting questions. So I'd love to have you address them all. So let's sit together.
Let's just get comfortable. Just be aware of just your body, and find a comfortable position. You can close your eyes. You can lower your gaze. We're going to do a short loving kindness meditation. We'll focus on the breath as our anchor. Why don't we take a big breath in through our nose and out through our mouth. Just nice big breath. And sometimes we hold a lot of tension in our jaw. I like to just move my jaw around a little bit when I'm going to meditate just before. And again, if you want to move during the it is kind of like medication, right? During the meditation, move. There's no rules really. Sometimes I just move my head around. And I try and get into my breath. I focus on my breath again as my anchor. We can't stop our breath. It's the one constant. It's kind of like a nice touchstone. Again, I breathe through my nose and out through my mouth. And I'm just going to say some things. If you'd like to repeat them to yourself, that's fine. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. We'll just repeat that again. Breathing through our nose, out through our mouth. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. Taking a deep breath. We're going to send it out to the group today, who I'm very grateful are all here with us. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself as you are. May you be happy. And may you know the natural joy of being alive. Thank you so much for meditating with me. Thank you so much. I am so grateful you're here. I am so grateful for your loving kindness. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much. It was truly deeply beautiful. So I feel like I should introduce Shelley Tagilsky, the Wizard of Oz from behind the curtain, who actually brought us all together. She brought me into this community. And Shelley, what can I say about you? Shelley is a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher. She's a writer. You see the notes for her book behind her shoulder over there. She's, oh, do you have a cat? Cat just came in.
Yes.
Hi, cat.
I thought I heard her meowing, actually.
Yeah. Charlotte.
Shelley is a force of nature. She's an incredible person. And I find that I think something's a good idea and I'm kind of lazing around thinking, yeah, that would be kind of good, you know, maybe that'll happen. And then she's done it, you know, like before I can take another breath. It's like, 1 minute, you know, and Shelley, of course, organized this panel. And so I hope that everybody could feel free to address some of the questions that have come in a way. Mitch just did some. Somebody texted, and please feel free to put questions in the chat. There's also a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen there, which I'll move over so it doesn't block anyone's face. And a question came in earlier. What are the practical tools that Mitch, Annika, or Fred, who's now gone, use when they experience heightened anxiety? Is there any particular tool that helps reel it back in. And in a way, the meditation you just did would be one perfect, and even the breathing part of it would be a perfect example.
You know what popped into my head immediately? I still do, but early on and through the journey, I had at 3 a.m. I was tending to get up, and I needed a lot of help with that, dealing with that. And I found the meditation, putting my hand on my heart, my stomach, and breathing helps me at that hour, because you get up in a panic, right? And you're feeling the heightened heart rate. And I would put my hand here because I'm a personal trainer, so I label what I'm going through. Another thing that's come up through meditation and learning, labeling what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. And I use 3 o'clock as an example because that's the time that we found out about Nick. Psychologically, that time was very difficult for me. So I had to attend to that. I had to deal with that, moving throughout the day in the unfortunate environment that we're in of divisiveness and the situation we're in where the gun violence, things happen, and the politics of it still go on. We talk to each other, Annika and I tend to read a passage, whether it be in I have a book. It's not right here now. I got it from the On-Site Foundation. They sent it to me. I think it's a daily. People have gone through grief and trauma. It's a daily reminder of different things that they touch on. So I read different things. I read people. Viktor Frankl came to mind earlier. How we respond to things is very important. So I have to be aware of what I'm feeling.
When I get those really, really bad anxiety, I think first to just recognize this is anxiety attack. I need to control it. I need to learn to control it. There's nothing wrong with my heart. There's nothing wrong with my lungs. And, try to slow your breathing, close your eyes if you can, deep breaths through your nose. And like I talked about the essential oils, I feel like they are many calming ones, like lavender, jasmine, lemongrass, they all have this anti-anxiety. Sometimes lighting a candle, I think it changes the atmosphere of the room. I like to do that. And
we have a morning routine, Annika and I. We make our coffee together. We're into bulletproof coffee, MCT oil, and butter. And we light a candle, and we put on a diffuser. I meditate. If she'll do what she needs to do. I'll read a positive passage. It's very important, the morning routine, how to start the day. That's the big one.
So you're setting yourself up with the calmness. And like I said, choose different oils, different mornings, and we just turn the diffuser on, and it helps to start with calmness. And
I try and look to positive people, positive things, and not, of course you're going to run across, if you go on social media, there's so many different things, but again, it's seeing that and saying, that doesn't serve me. What will serve me? And that's where maybe it's a little selfish. That selfish beat, you have to be selfish, right? Yeah. Those are a few things. There are other things, that come along. Of course, we're fitness. I'm a runner, so I find that meditative space in running. We go to the gym together. Even now, you follow a program because the cortisol and stress through grief and trauma, it really is there. You feel it. It wears you. It eats you up. It wears you out. So you have to attend to that in a positive. You have to counter it, right?
Right. And I think also give yourself a break. Like I said, we like to exercise, but some days you just feel like the stress hormones are just too much, and it's okay. So if I don't do anything today, it's okay. I can clean tomorrow. I can do an errand tomorrow. It's okay to give yourself a break. And like we said, we were big into running before, and I had a very difficult time to run because I would have like a panic attack every time my heart rate started going up. So the yoga didn't do that to me. So I was able to do the yoga instead. So, but it's okay. I think to acknowledge that it's there and try to manage it. I think that's it.
Sometimes also, and this is just for me, I do like to go in Nick's room. he's still a presence always in my life. And I like to go in and just be. It's not easy sometimes, obviously. That's a piece. And I honor, and I hang out with my other son and talk with him about things. And just, again, getting back to being a dad.
Yeah. And also to talk about Nick and to look at his picture, it's sadness and you're mourning, and you can cry, but sometimes it takes away it's not the anxiety of like how he died and everything that happened around that sometimes that brings more anxiety for us. Like, news, things coming out in the news, what happened or stuff. So I think that to just bring I can smile and look in Nick's picture because I miss him, but I remember the good things,
Yeah, and I try not to focus on the future. I can't really deal with all that because we know things are coming that concern our life and our family and what happened. I can't go there. I choose not to go there. And so, again, not to be like, the present moment is very important. This is where we are right now. That's very important to me, staying in that moment, because I know that when I go to the past and it's bringing me to that place, so why go down that rabbit hole again and again and again and again, right?
Yeah.
Is your cat trying to get in the closet? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. She's a funny kitty.
I actually, if I could just add, there's two really quick tools that I find useful. Yes, even I have anxiety attacks quite frequently, actually. Usually have them in the bathroom for whatever reason, on the bathroom floor, but my space. In order to sort of regulate the limbic system, really like just getting the balance, right, of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nerve. To put it in layman's terms, really it's like the brakes and the gas pedal of a car. And so I either do a 6-1-8 breath or a 4-7-8 breath. The ratio is the most important thing. The numbers are not as important. And the ratio just means that you breathe in for a shorter period of time than you breathe out for. And that, there's studies that are now coming out that show that this helps to sort of put the brakes on when you start to feel that the gas pedal is getting too intense, and it really helps to kind of bring you back into the moment. So it's 6-1-8 or 4-7-8 are the two different options that I personally choose. But again, any number that could work for you and your breath capacity. The other thing that I wanted to mention really speaks to what you were talking about, Annika, is that, I find that in speaking to a lot of, individuals who are kind of, I don't know, they feel, I think, awkward or like they don't know what to say or do, and they feel almost bad, like speaking to the parents of victims about their children, like about I love having conversations with Fred about Jamie. I love having conversations with Annika and Mitch about Nick, because I honestly feel like I feel like Nick is a presence in my life. Like I know him, I feel his energy, and I just I'm so impacted by him on a daily basis. It's really given my life as well, like a North Star. And so I think, just for the participants, I think it's helpful to also try to step out of like your own selves and anxieties and understand that, that it sometimes it's a gift, I think, for the parents to feel like, that they can keep the memory of their, and, in a very light and heartful way, because that's how we want to remember their children, and so if you can open yourself to that, I think it's something that is appreciated. And I don't want to speak on behalf of you, Annika and Mitch, but I mean, it's just something that I've kind of like garnered over time, is just because I think, Nick's always been so present in all of our conversations, like, and I love that. I love that we could just like have those conversations and we don't have to skirt around anything,
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with what you just said, for sure. For us,
it is part of healing
Yeah.
to be able to talk about him.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
I want to go to Samantha in a moment, but somebody's asking you a question, Shelley, about the ratio of the breath. Is it breath in breath for 6 and hold for 1 and breathe out for 8? It actually does not matter. Even the holding does not matter depending on your lung capacity. The parasympathetic nervous system, it is said, will kick in if your out breath is longer than your in breath. So like I have asthma, so it's not going to be 8, whatever it is. And it really doesn't matter. But as long as your out breath is longer than your in breath, your sympathetic nervous system will calm down and the parasympathetic nervous system will kick over. And I wanted to actually ask you, I was interested when you said the thing about EMDR, and I also want to ask Samantha if she has tools. When we did this retreat together in Barry, Mass, which is where I am now, I think the single most important word of the whole retreat was tools. And that's what people were most interested in. And some of that had to do with just the nervous system and realizing that on top of or underneath the psychological trauma or whatever one is going through, just the effect on your nervous system, your body is very significant. And that's why, it's interesting to hear you talk about running and floating and yoga and doing all these things that will really address it very directly. But Samantha, what are your tools?
So I think I've kind of picked up a lot of different tools throughout this journey. And what I've learned from you and from Shelley is that it's helpful to just have a variety of tools in your toolbox. And then depending on the experience or the moment, have the opportunity to choose which one. And sometimes it's a matter of choosing many tools. I know that I agree with Mitch about labeling. That's really helpful for me personally, because I think it helps to take me out of that emotional space and into a more cognitive space, to identify what I'm feeling. So even doing a quick body scan and just labeling what's the experience that I'm having, that's really helpful. Breathing, sometimes even just sitting and listening to music. I find music to be really meditative. Calling a friend is really helpful. I know I call Shelley often. Sometimes we're just like, and that's helpful too, to be able to vent in those moments. And I think just having, to go back to community, having that community of care, having those other people who that you can turn to and rely on is really helpful. And therapy is really helpful too. And that has been helpful for me to process. And I think we all, I've learned to be human is to suffer, and we all experience different levels of suffering throughout our lives. And I think to accept that and not resist it has also been very helpful in my personal journey, and something that is sort of ongoing, because I've noticed that sometimes there's the suffering itself, and then I know for me, I tend to add layers to that suffering. And so at times just accepting it, like this is what's here right now, and that's okay.
And another thing that's helpful for healing is laughter. And allow yourself to laugh and not feel guilty about it, because that was very hard in the beginning.
Yeah.
You would feel guilty that how could I be laughing now? I should be crying, But that's, I think laughter is really good.
Also people helping us find hope and faith. I lost hope and faith.
Yeah.
There it was. But I have since found that through other people that have shown us the love on this panel.
Look for beauty in the world too, because I feel like everything is so evil, and then just like take the time to smell the roses. Yeah. Look at the sky, look at the tree, just appreciate the nature.
Annika and I like to go running in the park and grounding, take off our shoes and run around the field. And just we'll do a 20 to 30 minute run in the grass. That's our new about thing. 4 days a week we're doing that.
Like, who are those crazy hippies running around without shoes in the grass?
We are a little crazy, but hey, it makes you feel a little better.
It feels good. Yeah, it feels good.
Like from the movie Hair.
Yeah.
So great.
So please, if you have any other questions, please just type them in the chat. Samantha, your dad says hello. In fact, the Cutlers together as a unit say hello.
That's right.
And there's a lot of gratitude coming in.
Nice. So beautiful.
As long as you just wear your mask, you're okay running around.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to add to that. I think we all have a new appreciation for life. And sometimes turning to that, like Mitch and Annika were saying, and just appreciating the beauty that is around us and the fact that we're alive and life is a gift. And I've learned, in going back to what that initial conversation we had, Sharon, about equanimity and just sort of holding it all, that by allowing myself to go to those dark places and accepting that that's where I was at that time, it's also given me the opportunity to feel those positive emotions more fully. Whereas before it was kind of stunted.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That reminds me of in Buddhism, it's captured in the prayer of the Bodhisattva, which is an awakened being. And it's, may whatever arises serve the awakening of heart and awareness. So in kind of looking at what you're thinking about, what you're saying, Samantha, it's like everything that's happening to us is some sort of an awakening if we want it to be.
Yeah, I've always been a very positive person. The glass is half full. And when this happened, because we had Alex too. So the worst thing in the world happened to us. But wait, did it? No, the worst thing in the world did not happen because Alex was saved. And it was a very twisty emotion. Like, I'm supposed to be so blessed that we had Alex, yet the worst thing in the world happened. That was very difficult.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. So, and he was our hope there in the beginning too. Like the reason to get up in the morning. I have another son, and we need to tend to him. And
yeah, it took me about 3 months. Like I said before, it really hit hard, and I had to work through that next phase of it because we weren't able to be there for Alex.
No,
at that in the
everything
beginning
was Nick the whole time.
And then it just was like, wow,
wait a minute,
got this kid in the room, my son in the room. Wow, what happened to him?
And I don't think we realized. I mean, he told us what he went through, but I think we were in such shock we couldn't really understand. Like, wait a minute, what he just witnessed, and he's our hero. He's like, so
and the resilience
strong.
He's shown through the journey as a he was a freshman when it happened. So the lens he's coming to work, he's put in again to see that he can do that.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing, to see a smile on his face and to get out of the, this cloud that was over him for a long time, to open up.
Yeah, he's definitely, so, and he does his own. He doesn't. I forced him to do 1 minute meditation sometimes, but he likes to burn incense in his room too.
Yeah, he does.
It clears out.
But I think the trauma therapy of course, has helped immensely, and seeing, I can't speak for him, but seeing his parents go through. And also trying to recover and continue to lead a healthy lifestyle. And
he goes to work out now, so he's exercising.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely come along.
And and he didn't engage in the political piece and what happened and all that other things that are very important, but it wasn't his wheel. It wasn't.
I don't think I don't think he could. I think he
Yeah, no, there was no way.
There's no way he would have stood up in a big crowd or do anything like that.
Yeah, he was very frightened.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's another conversation.
And that's Times Square behind you, right? So
that is, yes.
What is it?
Times Square.
Yes.
Uh,
are you a native New Yorker, Mitch?
I am.
You're not.
I'm Sweden. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in New York, born and bred. I love New York. And so does Annika. And we have many good friends there and family. Absolutely.
Well, someday I look forward to your visit. Well, I look forward to being back there, and I look forward to your visiting me there.
Yeah.
We can.
If they will have Floridians.
Yes, yeah.
And well, someday. And I got the message that you don't mind people moving into your house, which you said, no, you said, well, when the tragedy happens and all these people like moved in and they were just there. So then I thought, they're open to people moving into their house. So maybe someday I'll just move in for a while.
I have a feeling if you need a place, right? But I would still get letters
from people all over the country.
All over the countries. I'm looking at one right now, just last week.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, still, and what, going to Shelley's point about talking about, my son, when I see pictures that I've never seen or meet young people who are his friends, that he's impacted so many.
Really a lot.
So many.
I mean, I can tell that from Ivy or Mrs. Seamus, when she spoke about him, that he was a very impactful person.
He was very inspirational, really happy-go-lucky, lighthearted, just full of life, good boy.
And we try to continue for his legacy to stay alive with the Swim for Nick and to continue to inspire young swimmers to want to do better. We give out scholarships with swim clinics.
Yeah.
So in his memory.
The discipline and perseverance that he showed and the rewards that he got from being that type swimmer and what he gave him. It's not for everybody, but it's the ones that there have been swimmers who I wanted to quit and now they're getting scholarships and going to school. So
nice.
We're just excited when we hear that stuff, but also to talk about Nick, people who knew him, people who have been impacted by him, that it just is very lovely, in a healing way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. It's really been beautiful. I was joking about moving in, but it's so nice to be together. Really,
we have a place here.
Thank you. I mean, it's really beautiful to feel all of your presence and wisdom. And Shelley, I think you have a poem you wanted to close us out with. Is that right?
Yeah, it's short and sweet. I think it's appropriate. In the name of the daybreak and the eyelids of morning and the wayfaring moon and the night when it departs, I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself humbly as a guardian of nature, as a healer of misery, as a messenger of wonder, as an architect of peace. In the name of the sun and its mirrors, and the day that embraces it, and the cloud veils drawn over it, and the uttermost night, and the male and the female, and the plants bursting with seed, the crowning seasons of the firefly and the apple, I will honor all life, wherever and in whatever form it may dwell, on earth my home, and in the mansions of the stars.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you all for your lives, your heart, your work, and your effect on others, which is really very profound. And so, thank you.
Thank you. We're looking forward to reading your book.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Shelley, for being the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, Shelley.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course. Thank you so much. Love to you all.